It's ridiculous. Why do I feel like I can't breathe? Thank you guys for joining today. Right now, I'm working on a short story collection, which may be my debut novel. It's titled Sleeping Uglies. It's a short story collection that weaves in West African folklore, human fear, and the unknown. I actually started the project specifically for this channel just to show you everywhere from the beginning of the process all the way to publishing if I do decide to take that route, either self-publish or traditionally publish. So I just wanted to kind of document it like a writing diary kind of thing. I as well have a podcast where I interview your favorite AuthorTubers, which I just got up and running. I have already interviewed a couple of different AuthorTubers, ranging anywhere from beginning writers, beginning AuthorTubers to AuthorTubers that's been here for some time, have a bit of a following. Now, I interview them briefly and then they participate in my Write on the Spot challenge. In my Write on the Spot challenge, they have 5 minutes to brainstorm and then they have to create a short story based off a prompt that they get off my prompt wheel, and they only have 20 minutes to write the story. After they write the story, they do have to read to the audience what they wrote and then we discuss it. So it's been going all right. It's been okay. Today, I decided to post a video just about my projects, who I am, because I realized I don't really have a video about me up here. I haven't really explained my projects really that much, and I also want to talk about AuthorTube in general, maybe like a hot takes type of deal, or just why I don't like AuthorTube type of deal. Similar, most likely, to the same video that Fiona's Universe posted. If you don't watch Fiona's Universe, you definitely should. She is one of the AuthorTubers that I actually like. And she talks the truth. Before I even started posting videos in the community, I agreed with a lot of the things that she said when it came to AuthorTube, and that was just from the outside looking in. Now, when I first started posting, I did have the thought in my mind that AuthorTube was a writing community where everyone just loved to write. When it was just from the outside looking in, I agreed with a lot of things that she was saying in her video, but then in the same sense, I was like, well, the community does look pretty close-knit, like they're a community that likes to write, they like to have fun, they like to talk about writing, they like to collaborate, they like it's strictly, just like a writing community, all things writing. But I was wrong, very wrong. So after actually joining the community and, seeing it for myself firsthand on the inside and not just from the outside looking in, and meeting, other AuthorTubers and writers, I gotta say, my outlook has changed completely on AuthorTube. It's also changed completely on a lot of AuthorTubers. And it's really made me kind of take a step back and look at, the reality of things when it comes to mixing content creating with writing. Now, as for me, I'm a writer. I love writing. I love all things writing. I like to have, fun with my writing. I like to collaborate when it comes to writing. I like to pick the brains of other authors when it comes to writing. And, I like to look at other authors' work and help them where they may need help or not help them or just enjoy whatever it may be. I feel like the majority of them start out doing it because they love writing. Like maybe they start out doing it because they do want to end up publishing. They do want to show the process, and they're excited about writing, and they're excited about creating a book and meeting other writers. But in the same sense, I feel like once you get to a certain level, once you get a certain number of subscribers, a lot of them feel like they're untouchable. I'm going to mess with who I mess with based on what they can bring to the table, based on how many subscribers they have, based on how good their content is, based on how good their camera is, how good their audio is. It's never really about writing. Like, it turns into strictly just about content. What can I get out of this? What can I get from you? And a lot of the YouTubers that I've seen, like especially lately, I don't know what it is, but a lot of their videos start off 1 or 2 actual informational videos to help either with writing tips or just about their project in general, like, the writing vlogs. And then, let me take a breath because I can't breathe talking too much. And then it goes from actually caring about writing and showing the writing process and helping other writers to, I'm just going to stick a bunch of B-roll clips together, and then I have like 5 minutes where I talk about my writing project, and then that's the video. Like, I think it's setting a standard for AuthorTubers that shouldn't be set, you know? Like, if you like cinema and creating videos and creating cinematic videos and like B-roll clips and just showing your daily life, maybe you should join Day in My Life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you should be a part of the Day in My Life community. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't call it a writing vlog if you're not talking about writing, like straight up. And a lot of the stuff that a lot of the AuthorTubers talk about on their channel when it comes to writing are things that's like literally like surface level. Like, you can find these things yourself on Google or, you know, with just a search.
Oh my
really
God.
Basic. They don't really go into depth about anything. They don't really explain what they're saying. Not only that, but a lot of the writers give you a false hope when it comes to actually publishing, for lack of better words. And Fiona mentioned this in her video as well. So when you first start writing, you're fresh out the womb into the writing world, and you're watching these videos and you're seeing other AuthorTubers say, publishing my debut novel. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you're not most likely going to publish and be successful with your very first book that you've ever written. No! And I think that should be kind of explained. Like, if these other AuthorTubers or writers have written other books in the past, they should say, okay, I've written X amount of books, but this is the first book that I'm considering publishing. Hence, this is why I'm going to call it my debut novel. But don't get it twisted, this is not the first book that I've written, because a lot of people will then go on to write their very first book that they've ever written and then try to publish it, and then they'll be let down because they're given this false hope that, hey, all these other people are publishing their first books, so I can too. And this is not to say that, you know, all very first books like are trash. I mean, 99% of them are. You may be that one person that can publish a debut novel and it gets a lead and you get an agent and it sells and it does beautiful. But chances are it's not going to sell, and you're going to need to write many, 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 many more stories before you have perfected your craft enough to be perfect enough for you to sell. Because as a writer, it's never going to be perfect. It's literally never going to be perfect. Once it gets to that point where you're like, okay, this is good, it's probably perfect in the sense of it can be published. It's good enough to be published. So yeah, that's another thing. Just the false hope of actually publishing a debut novel. If it's not an actual debut novel, if it's, you know, like your fifth book, but the first book that you're publishing, that's a different story. Also, another thing that I don't like is you'll see a lot of AuthorTubers post these tips or write like this, or like, this is how you do this and do it this way and not this way. They'll post different videos trying to be informational, and that's all right. But, and I'm not trying to come for nobody, like, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm a changed person. But if you are, let's see, how do I say this? But if you are giving all these tips, right? And like, just for example, if you're giving all these tips and you made a video about adverbs being bad, don't use adverbs. Don't, you know, this is how you need to write a sentence. This is how it should be constructed without adverbs, or don't, you know, use unnecessary pronouns. And then you watch this AuthorTuber start the process of querying or, you know, submitting to agents, and then they get feedback from these literary agents that you would think they wouldn't get feedback on. Like, for instance, if they made all these videos about adverbs, but then you see that they're getting feedback from literary agents that they queried their debut novel to, and they're telling them, hey, there's like a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed in this, and I just don't have like the brain power to, like, I don't got the muscle to do it. Like, this is like, if it was just a little bit, you know, we could work with you, but you know, it's simple things like grammar, simple things, too many adverbs, simple things, unnecessary pronouns, simple things. You know what I'm saying? Spelling. Like, if they're getting that type of feedback where they send in their manuscript to a literary agent, is this a person that you want to take writing advice from? I would think not. Now, if you're just strictly showing us the process, okay, like, this is me. I'm new at this. I'm not saying that I'm the best at this. I'm not giving out any writing advice because I'm not too sure about it myself. But I just want to show you my process and me trying to publish a book. Then that's fine. You know, just be transparent in your videos. If you're not as good as you say you are, let people know that, because they're looking at your videos for help. They're looking at your videos for guidance when it comes to writing or just inspiration. If you're just inspirational, just be inspirational, right? If you're someone like, what's her name? Majestic? I think that's her last name. Majestic. If I'm butchering it, I'm sorry. But you probably know who I'm talking about. If you're like her, she literally worked for big publishing houses. So I would take her writing advice over a lot of the other AuthorTubers writing advice, because she knows what she obviously has the credentials. She knows what she's talking about. And that doesn't go to say that someone who's never published a book before wouldn't know what they're talking about, because maybe you've written 30, 40, 50 books in your life and you've gained experience from just writing those books. But like I said, if you haven't written that many books, or none at all, and this is your first book, you probably shouldn't be given writing advice. Now, another thing that I don't like is a lot of the AuthorTubers, they're mean girls, like straight up. They're mean girls. I've talked to other AuthorTubers, like ask them, you know, just talking about my podcast in general, getting other AuthorTubers to come and do interviews on my channel. And while there has been a lot of positivity around it, you know, I've met a lot of AuthorTubers that are open arms. They're welcoming. They're girls, like, you know, like 100%. I don't care how many subscribers you have. I don't care if you're just starting out. That would be fun. I want to do it. Let me on. Let's do this interview. Let's go. Here's the Discord with all the other AuthorTubers in it. Like, you know, very welcoming. So yeah, that doesn't go to say that there aren't nice individuals in the community that I respect. But in the same sense, just like any place, there are mean girls, guys. Mean girls. And I only say that from my own experience, plus from some of my new friends that I've made in the AuthorTube community. I mean, I've heard stories of, you know, like how we do the writing sprints. You know, like they'll leave certain people out of doing the writing sprints just because of they may not like how their channel is. They may not like, you know, them in general, but it's mainly because, okay, you don't have enough subscribers. Your camera is not that great quality. Your audio is not that great quality. We're not going to boost you up. Next to us, you know what I'm saying? Because in their eyes, they're fucking Angelina Jolie's, right? When that's absolutely not the case. But, you know, like there's been stories like that. You know, they'll exclude people based off of their platform. Like, if you cannot offer me anything, if you're not good enough, we're not going to let you tag along, type of thing. If they do let you tag along, it's strictly because they just need to hit some type of thing for their live streams. And they're like, okay, I'll take you because you're here. And then after that, poof, who are you? You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm saying. It becomes where it's not about the writing anymore. It's not about collaborating. It's not about growing as a writer. It's just about the content. And, you know, I had one girl, she's new, just like I am. And I don't even have a lot of subscribers yet. But she felt like she wasn't worth it when I asked her to come onto my channel and do an interview for me and spin the wheel. She was like, you know, I'm not worth it. I don't have that many subscribers. And she was like, you know, she was being serious. She really did not feel like her interview would be worth anything because of the fact that she did not have a lot of subscribers. And it just blew my mind, because it's like, that's the mindset that you have most likely because of what you're witnessing in the AuthorTube community, where you see they pick and choose who they want to mess with. They pick and choose who they'll collaborate with, who they'll do writing sprints with, whose channels they'll comment on, whose content they'll like. And it's sad because she's, in my opinion, probably a lot better of a writer than these AuthorTubers that have 10,000 plus subscribers. But she'll get there, like I said, she just started out just like me. She literally has only posted like 3 or 4 videos. But yeah, let me take a sip of my drink. Now, I probably would be like more rambunctious talking about this, but it's late. And instead of sleeping, I decided to do this video for some reason. And yeah. So these are just things I want to get off my chest about the community because, like I said, while I've met a lot of great people, a lot of nice people, a lot of welcoming people, open arms people, there are people that are getting all this attention on AuthorTube that are strictly just here for the content, strictly just here to monetize, and they're not a community like I thought they were. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. It's not a community like I thought it was. And I came in and I figured, what other way to connect? What other way to pick the brains of other writers and get to know them and collaborate than do these interviews? And it's brought out a lot of great AuthorTubers, but it's also brought out like the bad side. Something so simple, right? A YouTube channel. With that being said, I've had great rapport with a lot of them. For instance, My Jordy. I mean, I cannot express enough how great she is as a person. She's a great person. She's a great writer. I love her videos. Great aura. All around great individual. Completely welcoming to me. She was the very first person that I reached out to. And she was the very first person to be like, yeah, dude, let's do it. This is my Discord. Let's get something going. Reached out to her. We did it right away, right? We hit it off right away. It was like talking to a friend that I've always had. Because she's a genuine person. That's how it is. When you're talking to someone that's genuine, it's like talking to a long lost friend. Araya, she's another YouTuber. Completely, a very, very like happy personality she has. And we built rapport through commenting on each other's videos, but she's very, very, like I said, genuine person. Great content. Then we have Ash Danny Writes. She was one of the interviews that I did. Completely great person. Felt like I was talking to a long lost friend. We talk about writing still. Even after the interview, we still connect. We still reach out to each other. We still talk about writing. We still check in on each other. Same for My Jordy. Dami. Same thing. You know what I'm saying? Very welcoming to me. And Joy. Write with Joy, I think is her YouTube name. She's also been very open arms, very welcoming. She's very nice, I guess would be the simple word. And I can only talk about the people that I can talk about. Like I can't talk about anybody that I'm not going to mention the channels of people that are the opposite. If I missed you, I do apologize. This is just off the top of my head, like the first couple of people that I've reached out to that have been open arms. If I missed you, I do apologize because there are a lot of other AuthorTubers that have been welcoming to me as well. And I'm not saying that just because just because these other AuthorTubers don't go out of their way to welcome new people means that they're assholes. No, there's other reasons why they're assholes. But yeah, so that's about as far as I'm going to go into that. There's probably a lot more that I could talk about. But really just the basic reasons are because there's a lot of fake people that I've noticed on AuthorTube. They'll give you one persona, obviously on camera, but off camera, they're completely different. And I don't like it. It's getting old. It's getting weird. And I just got here. And it's not about writing anymore. And it may change the longer that I'm here. It may change. But so far, I'm seeing exactly how it is. And I don't like it. It's made a couple of AuthorTubers not want to post anymore. It's made them not want to be a part of the community anymore. I might have to get a hold of a couple of their books and do a review on here. I might just have to do that. And I think I might just do that. I think I might just get a hold of a couple of y'all's books that drop. And I think I might just post a review. And I'm going to be honest. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, I'm not holding back. Absolutely not holding back. So yeah, that's the end of that part of the conversation. Now, my projects. I am currently working on Sleeping Uglies. I also have 2 drafts that will be coming out in the next 2 weeks. They'll be coming out of the trenches. I finished them like 3 to 4 months ago, put them aside. Now it's about that time to take them out and start actually doing the revisions on them. One of them is Legs, which is a paranormal fiction / mystery. So we have a girl who disappeared. The bodies start washing up on the lake shore of the town, and they're not sure where they're coming from. Soon after the bodies start washing up, that's when one of my characters disappeared. After she disappears, they start trying to see if they're linked together, trying to figure out what happened to her. It goes back and forth between past and present. So you'll see like what happened leading up to her disappearance, and then current day, her gone. And it's all through the narration of a detective, and he's like my main character. And he is talking to his therapist, and he's telling him, the events that unfolded from the time that Lainey went, one of my characters, Lainey, she's the girl that went missing, from the time that she went missing to what led him to where he is now mentally. There's a character which they refer to as Legs, and it's like an ominous evil presence with very, very, very long legs. Why he's called Legs. Throughout the narration, the detective, my main character, he's not too sure if this Legs persona is real, but he keeps seeing more and more about it, like in lore and Lainey, which is the girl that went missing, and her mom, and what she starts talking about, like he starts digging into her past, finding more about her mental health, and then this Legs figure, and also like these other people that I've talked about him like on different forums and stuff like that. And he's trying to determine, is this real or is this not real? Like, obviously this can't be real. These people are crazy. And yeah, so it's pretty much just like, it's like, there's a twist. There's like a couple of twists in there. But it's really just about, finding out what happened to Lainey. Does this ominous, like, figure have anything to do with it, Legs? Or is it just, like, was it really just someone else? Or, like, her mom? Or, like, just different twists and turns. And I can get more into detail about that when I start working on draft 2. Now, I'm currently writing out the first story of Sleeping Uglies in my paranormal fiction, but I also have another draft that's going to be coming up soon to start working on, which is House of Beetles. And Beetles is really the last name of a family. And it's where my main character is diagnosed with cancer. She goes to live at this place called Serenity Haven, which is aka the House of Beetles. And there's these other teenagers there, and there's like this spooky story surrounding the facility that she didn't know about initially, but she does find out about, and kind of ties into the narrative as well. But they all have, like terminal cancers, and they're going there because all of the stories about, other kids getting better after going there, like it's a different type of treatment other than the, norm. And it's just a comfortable place to be. Even if you end up passing, it's a nice place to be for your final months. So she goes there, she's with these other kids, she's learning about them, she's learning about herself, and they find out that the nurses there are switching the bags of chemotherapy for something else. And that something else they find out to be rat poison. And they also find out that they are killing off terminal patients there to harvest their organs, basically, but a particular organ for a particular reason. And the facility has been owned by the Beatles which is not like the band, okay? It's Beatles, Beadles, which have owned this facility for years, and their family. It's been passed down. A lot of things happen, a lot of twists, a lot of turns. And there also is a figure, because, I love my paranormal. There also is, like I said, a horror story around the facility. This woman or man figure called the Crooked. And it gets crazy. That's all I can say right now. But I will be working on that draft as well. I have a draft list. Right now I only have 2 drafts on the draft list that I need to work on in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to start first with Legs, and then I'm going to work on House of Beetles. And then by the time I'm done with those 2, I should be finished with Sleeping Uglies, and then sit Sleeping Uglies to the side for about 3 months. And then I'll come back to Sleeping Uglies. Now, with Sleeping Uglies, I am getting to a point where I'm thinking that it might just be the first story in it might just be a novella. I might just make it a book, and I might have a part 2. Like, I might have a second book of my first story is what I'm contemplating. I really do just want it to be a part of my short story collection, but it's getting to me, like, the more I think about it, the more I want it to be its own book, and the more I want it to have a second book. Like, the more that I think about it, the more that I write down, and the more that comes to my mind, I just want it so bad. Like, at first I was mad at it for wanting to be a book, and now I'm like, okay, I see why you want to be a book. Like, I understand your motive now as to why you want to be a book, because you need more space. You need more space to breathe. There's all of these cool things that I can add into the book to make it so much better, but I need more space. So I'll be thinking about that. I will definitely be thinking about that. From my standpoint, right now, I'm just going to write, and I'm going to write until the story's done. Once it's done, that's when I'll kind of assess how many words that it is, how many pages, and then I'll go from there. And then most likely after I do my round 1 revisions, I will cut 10%, because I always cut 10% in the first revision, in the second draft, and I always cut 10%. So after I start cutting things away, I'll be able to see more clearly, like, okay, could this just stay a short story, or could I then make it just its own book and then make a second book? Because the way that I leave it, like the way that I'm going to be leaving it, because I already have an idea of how I want it to end, of course, subject to change, but because of the way that I want it to end, it leaves room for a book 2. So yeah, that's just something that I'm going to need to think about. Right now, it's just a part of the short story collection, so I'm just going to write it as is. I should be done with the first book, which I still need to think of a name of the first story. It's probably just going to be number 1. I'm probably not going to have chapter titles at this point. But of course, I got to label it. But I'll have to think about that as well. Probably once it's finished is when I'll start brainstorming titles. But I should be done with it within the next 2 weeks. Probably less than that. I'm at a good 15,000 words right now, which is well over 10,000, which is the short story number of 10,000 words. But she already has used her last pebble. So a little background if you're new here. My first story is about Hazel Bagley. She's a 10-year-old girl. She's living in the swamps of North Carolina. She is living in an orphanage, which is called the Buckland Mansion Orphanage, which is a real place, the Buckland Mansion. If you don't know about the Buckland Mansion, look it up. It's the one that's in Gates County, North Carolina. There are 2 cemeteries on the Buckland Mansion plantation, and there's one that is the Robert Smith Family Cemetery, which is a white cemetery. And there's one that is where the slaves are buried, which are under the 26 crepe myrtles that line the driveway leading up to the mansion. And I've been to this location a lot of times when I was a teenager, because Gates County, North Carolina is where I was raised. Since I do like to write a lot of paranormal fiction that has to do with West African folklore and things like that, I find myself loving the setting of Gates County, North Carolina, or Virginia in general, or North Carolina in general, because Virginia and the North Carolina area, especially Gates County, and Suffolk, have a lot of history when it comes to slavery or just the history in general. So I find it the best place to set my stories, because I know it so well. I was raised here, I know everything about it, so I can really help my readers connect because of how well I know the Virginia and North Carolina area. Same thing, you'll see some of the famous authors say, Stephen King, he loves to write stories based in Maine. Literally 99% of his stories are in Maine. There's one Colorado and offset place that he actually did visit still for the story. But yeah, it's good to write about places that you know well, so it can't be picked apart. Hazel is half white, half black. She doesn't like the black side of her because that's how she's been raised, living with other white children in the orphanage that have basically picked her apart for the black side of her. She only is living in the white orphanage because of the area that she's in and because she can white pass. So she is dealing with internal emotions as far as not liking that side of herself. So she is then met by Miss Lou, which is based off of the Voodoo Queen from New Orleans, and Miss Lou brings her a gift, which is a slave doll and a bag of pebbles. There's 4 black pebbles, 1 red pebble. She explains the pebbles to her, she explains the doll to her, and it's all basically to connect her with that other side of herself, so that she'll learn about her ancestors and appreciate who she is, because Miss Lou herself is half white and half black, which is based off of an actual person. So she brings her the doll and the pebbles. She explains what she needs to do with the pebbles, when she can use them, what they'll entail. Meanwhile, while we see her going through the usage of these pebbles, learning about her black side, she does get closer to them, learn more about them, as well as her parents, because the 4 black pebbles are a mix between good and bad memories. So she doesn't know, whenever she uses them, she doesn't know if they're going to be good memories or bad memories, or, notes, gifts, whatever. Now, the doll will let her know when she is able to use them. So when the doll opens its mouth, that's when she knows, okay, I can put a pebble in. She'll put a pebble in, it'll be good or bad. The good is just going to be, maybe notes or little things that link to her parents. And her parents, of course, had a forbidden love, which is where, when Hazel was born, and they had to give her up. So with learning more about where she came from as far as her parents is what's keeping her wanting to use the pebbles, because when she uses a bad pebble in the doll's mouth, she gets a letter with each gift that she gets. So the letter will either be a letter from someone to someone, or like a poem of some sort, something that's going to evoke different emotions from her, but something that's going to talk about these bad things that happened to her ancestors, which were slaves. And she will feel the pain that they felt for 2 days. Now, she also will have these nightmares. She will start to have these nightmares after she does use these bad pebbles, and she will see the same man, the same figure, over and over, which she refers to as dead man eyes, because of the way that his eyes look, obviously. So throughout the story, there'll be more mentions of dead man. And the doll also gives bene seeds, which are seeds that African American slaves used to snack on when they were in the fields. They're like these crisp little peanut butter seeds, sweet peanut butter seeds. They are an ingredient in like wafer cookies, and the doll dispenses them. She's told, it could be 1, 2, 5, none that the doll gives. You can press her belly for them whenever you want some, but don't be greedy, because then there will be consequences if you are greedy. But Miss Lou doesn't tell her what the consequences are, but she does warn her that they are highly addictive. She can also save up some of the seeds to get a mystery pebble, and she's not going to know what the mystery pebble is going to give, her, or what's going to happen with that mystery pebble, but she just knows she can save up seeds for another pebble, or they'll make her feel, better in those times that she is experiencing the pain from the bad pebbles. So it's like a lot that goes into it, I know, but that's like pretty much the gist. And it'll follow her, dealing with identity and dealing with her antagonist, which are these other white kids at the orphanage that are constantly antagonizing her, trying to cleanse her of her black spirit, things like that. And Miss Reddish, which is a head there. Now, Miss Reddish, she's like on the line, at this point. Like, she's like, do you care about Hazel, or do you not care about Hazel? Like, she's like in a place right now where it's like, she doesn't want to show that she cares about Hazel. But the more that you read, you'll see, does she care about her? Like, does she actually care about her? So yeah. And then in the end, things happen and it's crazy. But throughout the story, I do make mentions of the Dust Bowl. Now, North Carolina did not get hit directly by the Dust Bowl during the Depression, but they did experience a moment of, famine, where food was hard to get, essentially, but not for as long as, the other regions that were hit directly by the Dust Bowl. So I do kind of throw in, like strange characters that are passing through, that are from the Dust Bowl area, that are, coming through looking for food, shelter, whatever, or just passing by, like trying to find new place. A lot of these people, they have the brown plague, which was pneumonia from the dirt. And yeah, so she'll meet like a a bunch of different people that we call like tin can travelers. There's another group of people that she runs into as well. But anyway, you'll just meet these bizarre people from the Dust Bowl era, and it gets really weird and it gets really cool. And the ending, I have a like set in my mind how I want it to end, and it's just coming together so great for me right now. Really, the only problem that I've had with the first story so far is determining whether or not it's going to be a book, a standalone book, or if it's going to stay in the short story collection, and if there's also going to be a book 2 of Hazel Bagley, my 10-year-old main character that I'm absolutely loving, because she is like so like she's getting a little bit dark throughout these chapters that I've been writing. Like, I'm noticing she has this dark side to her that I'm not too sure about right now, but she is kind of hilarious in a way. I think you guys will love her if you do ever read it. But yeah, so that's where I'm at now. Since I'm going to be coming to an end on my first story in the next couple of weeks, I need to start figuring out what story I want to go with next for the story in the book, in the collection. Now, I do already have ideas I want to use in my book, or touch, like combined in my paranormal fiction. And it's some really good ones, actually. And a lot of people don't know, a lot of the West African folklore is the reason for why you got the horror books and the horror movies that you have today, like Candyman, for instance. But we're not going to talk about that, how they be stealing and don't be giving credit where credit is due. Alright, so here are some of the ideas that I have for the next story. It's a lot of them, but it's between 2, actually. It's between 2 that I can't decide which of the 2 that I want to be next after Hazel. You know what I'm saying? Should have thought about that. Alright, so yeah. So there's 2 that I boiled it down to. So the 2 options that I have for the next story is either Haint Blue. So if you don't know what Haint Blue means or refers to, Haints in West African folklore are people that passed away that cannot accept that they're dead. So basically they stalk the living, and if your house is not colored Haint Blue, they can get inside and pretty much take over, like a possession. Why not? In the story though, it would be like a girl who moves to a community where all the houses are Haint Blue, and she doesn't know why, but she thinks they're hideous, right? But she finds one house that she's like, I can work with it. She decides to move there, and she paints the house whatever color, and she starts experiencing strange happenings with one of her neighbors. And then she gets to know her neighbor, and she's like, okay, they're not that bad. And then her neighbor starts telling her about the lore, like who the Haints are, and past stories of the community, and why everyone's house is Haint Blue. And she's like, wow, y'all are kooks, but everybody has their town, has their ghost stories. So she's like, whatever. And then of course, after she paints her house, she starts experiencing even stranger activity. She'll start experiencing things like things moving, things not being where they're supposed to be, people watching her. She doesn't know who they are. And she starts to believe a little bit in that Haint Blue, the Haints folklore. And there's like this crazy twist that I have an idea of doing. But that's just the gist of it. So it's either the basics of what I just said. It's going to be a lot more in depth, but that's just what I have so far. Or Big Liz. Now, Big Liz, I'm not going to lie, Big Liz has my heart right now. Besides Hazel Bagley, Hazel, you have my heart, but Big Liz, like, I think this is going to be such a great story, because Big Liz is based off of a old slave tale in West African folklore. It's based off of an actual slave. Big Liz was bigger than normal, she could have probably been on a football team or something, bigger than a lot of the men, so she would do a lot of the hard labor on the plantation, and not like mostly not housework and things like that, but she would do more of the hard labor like the men. And the story of Big Liz goes that her master gets her to carry this crate for him in the swamp, miles through the swamp. And then once they get to the place that he wants the crate to be, he makes her dig a hole, he makes her bury the crate, and then he kills her. Right? So my story would be pretty much Big Liz would be my main character. And it's going to start off giving you a little bit about who she is. Like, she has these dreams, she has these plans of leaving the plantation, she has this plan of getting her children that were taken away from her. But at the beginning, you'll also see her dealing with internal demons, which are basically these bad thoughts that she has towards the white children that she takes care of on the plantation. Even though she does the hard labor, sometimes she is also helping to take care of the kids, like bathing them, making them food, the job of a nanny, like a lot of slaves did back in the day. And she finds herself having these evil thoughts towards the white children, but she tries to rid herself of them by seeing one of the plantation hoodoo slaves, which were slaves that basically practiced hoodoo, because she didn't want to think that way, she didn't want to be that way, because to her, if she was thinking that way and she acted on her thoughts, she would be no different than them, right? And everything that they've done to the people that she loved, and so on. So she sees the hoodoo lady, and then after that, the next day is when I want to jump into, okay, she's going to take this crate for slave owner. He's like very urgent. He wants her to take the crate. She doesn't know what's inside the crate. They're going like on this long trip through the swamp. First they get in his truck. This is how I want it to be anyway. First they're taking, his vehicle, and then they're driving, and then he's like, let's get out here. She's like, what the heck? So they get out there. He makes her get the crate. He makes her carry the crate through the swamp. She's not really asking questions. She's, that's obviously she knows from experience not to really question the slave owner or the master and what he does. So she's like, okay, she's hesitant, but she's compliant as usual. She's carrying the crate. He's talking pretty much the whole way, and she's finding it a bit odd, and she finds herself wondering what's in the crate. She tries to look in it a couple of times on their way, during their trip in the swamp. And once they get to the destination, a lot of things start clicking together for her, which if I say it, then it's going to be a spoiler. But a lot of things start clicking together for her. She realizes what the heck is going on. She finds out what's in the crate after he made her dig the hole. And then I'm not really sure how exactly I want it to end yet, which I can't really tell you yet. Anyway, but I know it's going to be like something crazy. Like, I'm feeling crazy for this story. I want my main characters to seem like ordinary people. I want them to do ordinary things, think ordinary things, living ordinary, and then just the bizarre happens, right? And then we see how they handle it. And some of them, it does have that paranormal fiction thrown in there as well, so it's gonna get weird always, but it starts off pretty much like any regular day, any regular person. So yeah. So those are the two that I'm choosing between to be for the next story after I'm done working on Hazel Bagley, which I will be done within the next week or two. But like I said, right now, everything's been going pretty good with Hazel. Like, I've been loving this first story, and I feel like I'm going to have the same feeling for the next one, whether it's the Haint Blue one or it's Big Liz. And then I kind of got to start figuring out titles for each story. And the placement of each story in the collection is very important. You may not realize how important it is, but it really is important, because in a short story collection, you want to keep that promise still of, okay, each story is going to one-up the last story, or it's going to match the last story. It's not going to be just one story and then the rest is trash, or it's not going to be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, everything needs to mix well together and complement each other, and you want it to keep getting better in a short story collection, because you want them to be like, wow, okay, that story was better than the last story. I need to keep reading. And then I also, like I said, need to figure out what I'm going to do with this Hazel Bagley. Is she going to be a full book with the second book, or is she just going to be in the collection? So I got a lot to do. When I start doing my revisions on Leg and the House of Beetles for my second drafts, I will show my exact process on how I do my revisions. And like I said, those are 2 projects that I put aside for 3 months, and now it's time to dig them out of the trenches. So that's going to be fun. So I'll be working on those while I'm working on this collection. By the time I'm done with the drafting process of those, I'll be done with Sleeping Uglies, and I'll be able to put that away for 3 months, and then start a new project maybe. I don't know. So yeah, that was all for today. I hope you enjoyed this talkative, chatty video of me just being very transparent on the AuthorTube community, as well as talking about a couple of my projects and my main project. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, hit like, hit subscribe, and join me for my next video, guys. Thanks.